Welcome to the first section dedicated to mobile game development with Unity. The previous sections were more of an introduction, a discovery of Unity, the tools, the C# language. Here we'll start to get into the heart of the matter. Without developing a real game, we'll start by warming up a little bit and creating our own template. That is to say, a kind of mini project with a mini gameplay that will serve as templates. A template is a project, a kind of empty shell with just the essential elements that you will reuse in all your future projects. And you will start from this empty shell every time you want to create a new mobile game. This will save you a lot of time since you will never have to redo this configuration again. Well, that's it, enough said. So here I am on Unity. Normally you should have Unity Hub. Here I have open Unity Hub and we are going to create a new project. To do this, we'll click on New here. And to make sure I'm using the latest version, I'm going to click on the little arrow that allows me to really choose the version of Unity I want to use, and I'm going to make new project Unity 2022. Here the template selector is displayed. So we can start from a 3D project. It could work, but let's say I'm going to start this time from a 3D mobile project. This will allow me to have some small tools dedicated to mobile, to be able to debug a little bit easier. So I click on download because I don't have this template. I click on install and it will download and install this 3D mobile template. So while it's downloading, well, it's already finished, but I wanted to tell you something more. It's that before HyperCasual games were mostly dice games. Now it's not done anymore. If you look at all the HyperCasual games, they are in 3D. The 2D ones are hardly made anymore. It must have stopped around 2048. Everything that was 2048, Flappy Bird, Angry Bird, those kind of games, and now it's all 3D. So we downloaded this template, we'll select it. Here I'm going to rename it, I'm going to give a name to this project, I'm going to call it Tuto because, well, it's a tutorial. Tuto template game HyperCasual. At least it makes a little bit sense. And then in terms of where we want to save the project, I'm going to select a new folder. And I'm just going to put it in a training folder. It's going to be a folder dedicated to the video trainings that you're watching, and I'll file all the projects in this training folder. I select the folder and I click on Create. To start creating the project, so as usual, the first launch is a little bit longer because it initializes the whole project. It will generate all the necessary elements. So I'm going to pause the video for 30 seconds, just long enough to let the project initialize properly. So there you go, the project has initialized and it opened. So now we have our project. I'm just going to organize the interface the way I like to see it. So I'll have the inspector on the right. I'm going to place the project on the right as well. The project I right click on and select one column layout. I'm going to take the hierarchy and put it on the right as well, like this. So I always pretty much have this interface when I work with Unity, but depending on the project, I can add, for example, the game section here. I'll select here. Instead of leaving game, I'll select simulator, which is actually the mobile simulator. This will allow us to have a tablet. In fact, we can have all kinds of phone models that will be useful for us. We have the iPhone 10 with a small tab here on top. If you take, for example, the Pixel 5 will have the place for the camera integrated in the screen. In fact, all this will allow you to see what the most common phones look like. This can allow you to adjust your interface appropriately according to the different shapes of the screens and take into account the tab, the thingy, the other thingy. So I'm going to take something a bit classic on Android. I'll take Pixel 3, for example. Once we've done that, we can check Safe Area here. This will put a little yellow outline. This will show the safe areas, that is to say the areas that should be left free. Because potentially the player will not see or will not always have access outside these areas. So we're going to concentrate on creating our interface in this area. So you don't really understand the principle maybe, but I'll show you an example of the iPhone 10. If I take the iPhone 10, here you can see that the safe area does not cover the whole screen. This means that you should not create your game in this area or in this area, because there will be the back buttons of the iPhone, and then there will be the time, the battery, there's going to be the iPhone taskbar, so your game must be designed in the safe area. You'll have to respect that. I'm going to stick with Pixel. Once I've done that, that's it for the configuration. I'm going to take the simulator and put it on right here. I'm going to enlarge it about like that, and this will be enough to test. And here I'm going to enlarge the area so that I have a lot of space to work with. I'm going to start organizing a little bit. Now we have Editor, which is a folder reserved for Unity. We have the scenes that are, well, the different scenes of your game. We need several folders. So I'll create several folders. The scripts. We'll need prefabs. We'll leave it at the root. Then we're going to need a resources folder, which is also a specific Unity folder. When I say it's a specific folder, it means that when you call a folder resources, it has a particular meaning to Unity. The editor folder as well. If you create a plugin for Unity, you have to put it in the editor folder. This will allow you to anchor it in the editor. The resources folder is also a specific folder because there are C# functions, for example. This is just an example I'm giving. There are C# functions that can retrieve resources that are only in the resources folder. There are specific functions that only work if you have the resources folder. Another folder that we'll need, not at all. So another folder that we'll need is the packages. So this is going to be a folder that will contain all the packages that we download online. All the packages that don't belong to us. Everything that we'll get from the asset stores. If you use an editor, it will often ask you to separate the external packages from everything you have done yourself. So we'll create package folder here. We can create another folder that we'll call materials, for example. That will contain the materials. We can create a texture folder, but I'm not going to do that because I'm not sure I need it at the moment. Well, it looks pretty good now. We created a tree structure. I'll do Ctrl-Shift-B, which opens up the build settings, or you can click on File and select Build Settings. Here we will add open scene to add the current scene in the list of scenes to compile. We'll switch to Android to be able to test our game on Android, and then we will click on Switch Platform here. This will allow us to convert our project into an Android project, otherwise we won't be able to test it directly on our phone. The goal is to test directly on the phone. So I just had a problem. It's compiling. I have an alert telling me that for the moment I can't test, and here's if we leave, we let it load, now we can test. Once you've done that, once you've switched to mobile mode, we'll click on Player Settings here, and in the Player Settings you'll go to the Player tab. By default you may be somewhere else. We'll go to the Player tab, and here in this Player tab we'll put the name of our company, the name of our game. Here I will call it, for example, Template HyperCasual. The version here. Then a little bit further down, you'll have the option to change the icons, the resolution, and the presentation. We'll come back to that. But the thing to set up here is that the game will be played in portrait mode. I explained to you that games that are HyperCasual are always in portrait mode. It's actually eliminatory if you're in landscape mode. Editors, unless you have a really great concept that requires you to be in landscape, maybe you can have a chance, but we're going to uncheck landscape directly, and we're even going to uncheck portrait upside down. We're going to keep only portrait mode because the most popular games are played in portrait mode, simply because everyone can hold the phone with one hand and have access to the buttons that will be here at the bottom. So we're going to stay in this orientation, which is the only one that will be accepted by the editors. The splash image, for now, we're not dealing with that. It's just going to be the starting image for the game. So for the moment, we're not dealing with it. It will depend on your editor. You will have logos to display or not. In the other settings, here we'll just check, we're in linear mode, so that's good. The linear mode is actually, we have gamma or linear. In linear mode, you'll have better colors. In fact, the gamma mode tends to put toward the whites or the blacks. That is to say, if you have a very bright scene, well, you will have the impression to have a very, very, very white image. If you have a very dark scene, you will have the impression to have a very, very black image, whereas linear is going to offer a lot more color shades in a way. And we're not going to have this saturation effect of the image. Just checking the parameters, here we have the version, this is good, package name too, that's good, we'll leave it like that. The package name is important when you have published your game on Google Play Store, for example. This is what will be present in your URL, so of course you have to replace it with the name of your game, but we're only creating the template right now, so for now it's fine. The minimum version of Android, for now I leave the 5.1 because it's the default, but you'll also have to see with your editor. The goal is to make your game compatible with as many phones as possible, to reach as many people as possible, but without going on too old versions, because there are some features that will not work. And anyway, now Google, for security reasons, will not allow you to make your application compatible on device too old. So that's the same, it's up to your editor. For now I leave it as default. The scripting backend, so that by default was always in mono in Unity. Now we have the possibility to choose IL2 CPP, which will allow us to compile our code and to generate a more optimized code. And I know that there are certain tools, moreover certain tools like, for example, SDKs, which could allow it to display publicity, this kind of thing, which will require to be in IL2 CPP. So that's a parameter that you'll have to check with your editor. But I'm already going to use IL2 CPP here because it will allow me to have a more optimized code. So I'm going to focus on optimization. So if you want to publish your game on the Google Play now, we are going to have to check ARM64 to be able to compile a 64-bit version. You have to provide Google with both 32 and 64-bit versions of your applications. Again, this is for optimization reasons, so we'll check ARM64. I'll check the rest of the settings a little bit. I think for the moment we don't need to touch anything. For now it looks good. Publish settings, we'll come back later here, but when you actually publish your game on the store, so when you're going to compile your game to be published on the store, you'll have to generate a key store. Key store is a small password protected file that will allow you to sign your application, to really authenticate your application in a sure way, and that will be asked by Google too. And you mustn't lose your key store because every time you update your application, you'll have to reuse the same key store. You can't sign your application with a different key store. But for now, we don't need it. So that's about it for the configuration. I'm just going to go look in graphics. No, in quality, sorry. I'll just look at the quality settings. So this is Android. We're staying in medium. By default on Android, we're in medium. I'm going to leave it like that. This will allow you to have medium quality. You have low quality or high quality. In fact, we have several levels of quality. If you go to medium, the quality will not be extraordinary, but in any case, the game is optimized. And the editor will ask you to have a game that does not make the fun hot. So be careful not to be abused with the visual effects, etc. If your phone heats up, or if, well, not necessarily yours, but if the phone of people who install your game heats up, it will not be good and it can be eliminatory. So the editor will ask you to optimize that. So to be on the safe side, I'm going to go straight to medium, and I'm not going to risk going to high, even though Potentially, you have the possibility later on, if you really need it, to offer the player to select the visual quality he wants for his games. But let's say we stay in standard in medium. Once you have selected a mode, you can even customize it. Here you have the mode settings. These are the default options of the selected mode. So in medium, where we are, you have the possibility of reducing the quality of the textures by half, for example. What we have the shadows here. The shadows can be seen up to 20 meters, but for example, I can put 15, which will not display the shadows beyond 15 meters, which will optimize our application a little more. We are by default in low resolution, that is enough. Here for the rest, the number of cascades, what was it here? Here, the number of cascades, we're no cascades, which means that we're not going to have any cascades on the shadows. So if you look at the Unity documentation and shadow cascades, it allows you to fix the aliasing problems. The shadows appear pixelated, especially when we're in medium quality, the shadows appear pixelated. And depending on the settings, you have the possibility to smooth the shadows, because if we're in relatively medium quality, it will be pixelated, but for the moment it's not something that's going to be a problem for us in our game. But have the reflex to check the documentation from time to time when you have a doubt. And by the way, so I'm closing this. By the way, if you click on the camera, for example, and there is a component that you don't understand, any component, you have the little question mark here every time. So we had this for the camera, the audio listener, we had the question mark that allows us to go directly to the documentation to get information on the component in question. So that's it for the few settings. I'm just going to do Ctrl+S to make sure that these settings are saved. And especially the super important thing is to consult the Unity documentation. The documentation on the Android environment setup page. This will allow you to test your application on Android. Because if your phone is not in developer mode, you will never be able to test your game on your phone directly. So already at the Unity configuration level, when you install Unity, you have to install all the SDK, NDK, GDK, Android build support. You have to check all these options when you install Unity. So if you forget to install some things, you go back to the hub in the section of your installation. 3 little dots, add module, here to add modules, and there you have access to Android, there. So remember to install all this, and then we have the procedure to be able to test the game directly on your phone, because by default it will simply not work. So already on our phone we will have to accept unknown sources. Search on Google how to allow unknown sources on Android. This will allow you to install an APK without going through the Google Play Store. So that's an easy procedure to do. Then you have to switch your phone to developer mode. For that you have to go to the options menu, settings. In this settings menu you go to about phone and build number. And there it depends in fact on your phone model. The best way is to search on Google and you write how to go to developer mode on, and then you put your phone or your Android version. It is mainly the Android version that counts, and you may have to tap several times on the build number. You have to press 4, 5, 6 times. A pop-up will tell you that you are about to switch to developer mode and that you are in developer mode. This is a small manipulation on Android to access the developer mode. By the way, here in Unity, if you understand a little bit of English, we explained that you have to press the build number several times. And once you are in developer mode, you go to settings, developer options, and there you'll have access to a whole bunch of parameters, including the USB debugging. You have to check this box to be able to test your game on your phone. You'll need to connect your phone to Unity, and when you compile the game on Unity, it will automatically be installed on your phone if you have USB debugging enabled. When your phone is in developer mode, you connect it to your PC. The first time you connect your phone to your PC, you will get a pop-up on your phone and you will be asked if you want to trust this computer. You will have to say yes, and you can even check an option that says always trust this computer, so you never have to do it again. And you may have to type in your password or draw your graphic to really validate that you agree to trust your computer. I'm trying to find you some images on the internet. When you're in the developer menu, you have the USB debugging here. You'll be asked to you accept USB debugging, and then you'll get pop-ups that look like this or like that. Tells you, do you trust your computer? Then you check always trust and validate. On the internet, you can find all the procedures for switching to developer mode. You can find them without any problem. I will try to show you this. I will open the image in a new tab. To switch to developer mode, it's about phone. You press several times on the build number. The manipulation is a little different depending on the version. Then you have access to the developer options and the USB debugging, and then you validate the fact that you can debug by USB. So the manipulation is relatively simple. Once you've done it, you're good to go. And then you do Ctrl-Shift-B to access the build settings. If you're in Android mode, if your phone is plugged in via USB and everything is okay, you just have to click build and run. I'll do it. That will allow you to compile your game. So what I do is right-click, new folder, builds, which will allow me to store my APK in there, and then you can write test.apk, click on save, and it will send directly to your phone. For now, I don't do it, we'll do it later. Well, we'll stop here for this video. We've just created our project and adjust a few options, and we're going to continue to refine our template so that it's more interesting and with more functionalities, because for now we just have a project that's totally empty. So I'll see you in the next few videos to set that up.